A tragic death over the weekend. We see Jessica Aber, a U.S. attorney, found dead. Don't see this happen a lot. Age 43, still trying to piece together what happened here. Hopefully just natural causes and something that doesn't warrant a giant investigation or any suspicions, but definitely worth talking about because she was highly involved in the stories that we cover here, including CIA and Russian fraud cases. And here's what the New York Post is reporting for us, saying she was found dead, 43, pretty young, was very young, was in charge of high-profile cases targeting CIA leaks and Russian fraud, found dead on Saturday morning, had been in charge of some of the biggest cases targeting leaks in the CIA and Russian nationals carrying out fraud in America. Yikes. Those are not generally entities that act kindly upon people they're involved with. CIA, Russia, KGB, whatever. So she's targeting leaks. So let's say you're in the CIA, you're working with the CIA, they're doing something bad, you leak it to the media, she prosecutes that person for violating national security laws. Officials are investigating the cause of death, discovered unresponsive at her home, 9:20 a.m. on Saturday, prior to her resignation in January. As Trump took office, so she was no longer a U.S. attorney, the Biden-nominated attorney saw one of her biggest wins in court when ex-CIA analyst Asif Rahman pleaded guilty to leaking top-secret documents about Israel's plan to strike Iran last year. So that guy leaks documents. She prosecutes him. He pleads guilty. Pretty sure we covered that case specifically. So there's a photo of her and a colleague. High-profile case saw Rahman posting documents detailing Israel's October strike on Telegram, forcing the Jewish state to hold off on a retaliatory strike back against Tehran. Now, Aber had slammed the actions as a violation of his oath, responsibility of the law. She said the risk and the leak place lives at risk. Aber also led the case against Eleview International, a Virginia-based company, whose two senior executives were accused of running 3 different schemes to illegally transfer sensitive American technology to Russia. Right, so it's a prosecutor, maybe. She's not working for the U.S. attorneys anymore, it sounds like. Executives Oleg and Vital were accused in November of illegally shipping out more than $6 million worth of goods. Case just came 2 months after Aber secured indictments against 2 other Russian individuals. These others had $10 million rewards for their arrest and more. Along with taking on fraud and leak cases, she was also involved in the DOJ's unprecedented indictment of 4 Russian soldiers who lived and were committing war crimes against an American living in Ukraine. The victim, who was not identified back in that other case, was tortured, according to the DOJ. The defendants were identified as commanding officers. 2 ex-Justice Department officials with knowledge of the matter acknowledge and told the outlet that investigators have found no evidence of foul play, no evidence to suggest any foul play. That was Asif Rahman, the leaker. She was born and raised in Virginia, graduated from University of Richmond. Before being named U.S. attorney, was assistant district attorney and more. She had 50,000 miles on her Hyundai. One of her final LinkedIn posts, she shared a lovely photo of her U.S. Attorney's conference at 2024, said, "Good memories." The U.S. Attorney's Office issued a statement about this, saying she was shocked. They were shocked, heartbroken beyond words. Unmatched as a leader, mentor, prosecutor, and more. The loss of her is deeply tragic. Pam Bondi posted about this too. Here's what Pam said. "The loss of Jessica Aber, former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, is deeply tragic. Our hearts and prayers go out to her family and friends during this profoundly difficult time." So she wasn't an active prosecutor, right? That would be very strange and problematic if she was actively prosecuting a Russian and then suddenly she had a headache and dropped dead. Oh, that's weird. So it sounds like she's not actively prosecuting anybody, but maybe she was facilitating. She handed the case off. She resigned and handed the case off. And maybe a bunch of the work was from her and she was instrumental in creating the story and the narrative, and she knew everything. So we're always questioning that. Did somebody else take her out who she was involved with? They say no foul play. Also could have just been health related. Who knows? So there was more from her. There was a short clip here shared by Shadow of Ezra. Here was from another video that she released at one point in time.
"I serve because my first job was as a law clerk to a federal judge, and I had a front row seat to the work of assisting United States attorneys. I saw firsthand the good that prosecutors can do, that they review evidence, that they research the law, they meet with victims, and assess whether a criminal charge for that defendant is supported by the law and the facts, and whether it's the just outcome. It's an immense responsibility. and it's why government lawyers should be held to incredibly high standards. I serve because I want to take on that responsibility to help maintain a criminal justice system in which we all can trust.
I agree with everything she said there. I just don't have faith that the Department of Justice is doing that. I feel like they've lost their way on that vision. So I appreciate that statement, and rest in peace to her and her family. It's tragic to lose anybody anytime. So not good. But of course, we'll keep our eye on that to see if this was a natural thing or not, because we've also lost someone else over the weekend. This one was to brain cancer. Mia Love. She was a former congresswoman, the first Black Republican congresswoman who was elected. She passed over the weekend too. And this is the post that they shared with us on X. Says, "Love family. With grateful hearts filled to overflowing for the profound influence of Mia on our lives, we want to let you know she passed away peacefully today. She was in her home surrounded by family in the midst of her celebration of her life and an avalanche of happy memories. Mia quietly slipped the bands of mortality and, as her words and vision always did, soared heavenward. We are thankful for many good wishes, prayers, and condolences. We are taking some time as a family and will provide information about funeral services and a public celebration of her life in the days to come." So rest in peace to her as well. That was brain cancer. And so not a happy development to lose people, but we know she's in a better place now. So we've got more. Law firms are now scrambling to avoid being Trump's next target. We've seen Perkins Coie file a lawsuit against the administration. We've seen other entities like Paul Weiss create deals with President Trump and have Trump rescind the executive order because they've made commitments to not be partisan hacks anymore. But now they're freaked out. This article came over from the Wall Street Journal, says they are scrambling around there in the legal world to avoid being Trump's next target. After Trump beat Paul Weiss, others are scrambling to stay out of the crosshairs. Only way that they would get into the crosshairs would be if they broke the law and committed unethical misconduct by helping Democrats prosecute their political opponents in violation of the U.S. Constitution. That's all. Did they engage in that criminality? If they did, there might be some repercussions coming their way. Trump took a broad swing at the industry on Friday night after 3 earlier orders punishing Weiss and other firms. In a presidential memo that we read over the weekend on Saturday, he broadly accused law firms of abusing the legal system. Trump also directed Bondi to conduct a broad review of this misconduct and determine whether additional law firms should face sanctions. Several law firms and senior partners said they were working to calm clients and employees, with younger associates increasingly calling for lawyers to take a stand against Trump. We saw that one woman, Rachel Cohen, last week, who sent that whiny letter to everybody. They were split on whether they would rather their firms take a deal if targeted or fight it out. A number of firms were trying to draw distinctions to clients between their work and the activities of Trump that has already been punished. Corporate lawyers with a connection to the administration are trying to tap open communication lines. They're all freaked. This is tremendous news, because the Democratic Party and the left have controlled the legal entity, the legal institution, through and through. And we're using it like petulant children, abusing it. Clients had told us that they would not be able to stay with us, even though they wanted to. Oh, no. Very likely that our firm would not be able to survive a protracted dispute with the administration. One firm, Perkins, which was hit by Trump, continued to lead the fight. Now more than ever, law firms and lawyers across the political spectrum have to stand up for our timeless values, says David Perez, Perkins Coie partner. Yeah, you guys shouldn't have done what you did. Perkins Coie sued the administration on March 11th, won a restraining order from Beryl Howell, but that was pretty much fleeting. Perkins is losing clients who fear Trump's wrath, and a number of top companies that work with the firm have called other firms about representation. They're all abandoning ship. One of the people said that competing lawyers have made a sympathetic call to Perkins and said, hey, look, we're not trying to steal your firm or your clients, but they're calling us. An effort across a number of firms to file a court brief also continues to flounder because not enough firms are willing to sign it. Yeah, they've smartened up a little bit. They're not going to do that 51 laptop letter again. Goofed. They only did that to try to rig the election. Now they lost the election. Now they're not going to go after the guy that they were trying to take out. Best strategy is just to stay quiet. San Francisco-based Kecker, Van, and others urge law firm leaders to resist the erosion of the rule of law. Okay. Our liberties depend on lawyers' willingness to represent unpopular people and causes. You're not in trouble for that. including matters adverse to the federal government. Nobody's upset with you about that. An attack on lawyers who perform this work is inexcusable and despicable. Guys, you had Michael Sussman go sell a fake legal document that was made up from Christopher Steele and Fusion GPS and Mark Elias and Christopher Steele. You called that legal work product and tried to go shove that into the FBI's face. That is not representing the underserved, okay? That is political hackery. You're lucky you're not in jail. Trump's campaign, in part, has been focused on paying back opponents. It's not paying them back. They committed misconduct by creating fake stories and weaponizing the law and trying to use the FBI to do it. They're literal contacts with the FBI. They had access to the buildings. They were going in there. Michael Sussman had a lunch table there. They don't need that anymore. If they're going to abuse their access to the system, it's gone. Cut it off. This works. You learned that when you were younger. No, you're going to turn it off. If you're not going to behave, we're turning it off. If you don't behave, it gets turned off. There you go. It's very simple. So they're freaked about it.